Check the mic. 1 2 1 2. Here we are again. I'm the Zim. This is the Zim video. This is the Our Professors podcast. Rocking it live in Studio HQ, as we call it. We described all that last episode, I think it was, or two ago, maybe. Anyways, Studio HQ was all defined a while ago, but here we are, Studio HQ, Rochester, New York, Henrietta, more specifically, Henrietta Brighton, even more specifically. I probably shouldn't tell you much more than that. I don't want to get doxxed, right? Not that I would, but anyways, Henrietta Brighton is the area we live, and we are here kicking it live, doing it, well, not live, pre-record, kicking it pre-record, but I'm alive right now. Anyways, I'm feeling pretty good overall. Got a lot to tell you about. So reminder, I'm an art professor teaching at Rochester Institute of Technology this year. This is my second year. At an institution of teaching, specifically teaching. So last year, RIT, the year before that, Northwest Missouri State University, 1 year. Year before that, San Diego State University, 1 year, but low class load, like part-time, you could say. And then the year before that is when I finished my graduate degree, which took 3 years. And then many years before that, and I got my graduate degree at San Diego State University. And then a good chunk of time before that, I got my undergrad at the University of Washington in fiber arts. San Diego State was like graphic design / interdisciplinary. So this is where we're at, and now I'm kicking it, trying to survive. Basically, I am, there's no denying most of how I'm functioning right now is survival mode in many ways, but hey, that's what life brings you sometimes, I guess. And so hopefully someday it'll get to a point where it's not survival so much and more thrival. At least I'm smiling. I don't know. I wonder if you pull bits out of the podcast through the eras, through the time that I've done these, especially specifically the art professor ones, but even other online recording of myself, how you could tell my state, like how I'm feeling, if my anxiety is leading or but right now I feel pretty like, because I noticed the first thing I wrote on my list, so we're going to do bullet points. I have a whole bunch of bullet points. I tried to organize them in chunks of how they relate to each other. But we typically go, I'm going to tell you about the experience of the art professor part of my journey in this first section of the podcast. We will go into potential art kind of making, potentially, I don't know if I have much of that right now. So maybe we'll touch in on what my personal practice is looking like right now. And then I go into sort of political stuff, or no, I usually go political, then art making, and then I go personal. And the bulk of my bullet points really revolve around the professor part of it today. So we'll see what happens with the rest of it. And we'll just keep going down the list. But the first thing I wrote down on my list is, the closer I get, the calmer I get. So 2 weeks ago, it was the 9th, about August 9th, that weekend, 9th and 10th. I was out of my mind. I was seriously out of my mind. Like, and I hate, it's like rough, but the anxiety, the overwhelmness of like prepping for things. But then by last week, I was much calmer, way calmer. Because I had started preparing things, and now we're a weekend, 2 days, and I start classes, and it's just like, you know what? If it's not ready now, then we'll just beg for forgiveness and figure it out as we go. Hopefully my students are forgiving. Hopefully things just kind of work out. I'd like to be as prepared as I possibly can. I've learned that in life and in this job specifically, like, you can only prepare so much. So don't, here's my hopeful learning lesson for anybody that's thinking about this journey. Try to prepare as much as you can, because I believe it just makes everything easier the more prepared you are. Because the worst feeling, and I've done it a few times, is mentally thinking I got it. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I got that. And then showing up on the class day and go like, oh shit, I should have wrote some of this down because I'm not, and I'm having to kind of grasp at straws or whatever those kind of ideas are. I'm having to kind of like work too hard in real time to make it feel like I got my shit together. So, prepare as much as you can, but realize you have to leave. Basically, once you prepare to the T, but you got to realize that once you're in the space, there's like 20% of that preparedness that just is a reaction to the space. So you got to leave room for things to change, things to happen. So however you need to mentally justify that. For me, it's kind of like, okay, I prepared. I feel like I don't try to prepare it to be perfect. I like prepare it to about 80%. And then I'm like, all right, that last 20% will show up the moment we're doing it, in a sense. So that's just kind of the way that my mind works, but maybe your mind works a little different. Maybe you need to feel like it's 100% done, and then you allow space for it to change or something, whatever that might be. But the bottom line is be as prepared as you can, because I just think that makes it easier when you're in the space. You're just ready to go. You have something to lean on. You're not trying to wing it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of different personality types, and you might have a personality type that you just don't feel anxiety. So winging it and not being prepared might not affect you the same way that it affects me. It really affects me. I get really anxious. I get really sweaty, and I'm like, oh my God, this isn't going the way I thought it was gonna go. And it gets all wacky for me. But then on the flip side of that, the students know too. Like if you come into a space and you're not prepared, but you don't feel it and you just think it's not a big deal, it is a big deal to the students. The students want to feel like you will catch them if they fall, basically. And if you don't look like you're holding yourself up that well, they're gonna be like, yeah, I don't know about this. So they'll let you know in their end of semester reports. Don't let that stress you out. Just do the best you can, right? That's all you can ask for. That's all. I guess that's what it boils down to. Is like, as long as you're doing the best you can, and that's what I'm trying to do. It's like, there's a saying, somebody said one time in the music career I was a part of, there's this expression, that's the least I could do. But if you think about it in terms of what's the most you can do? And that's what I think you should bring to this. It's like, what's the most you can do? Not the least, the most. What is the most you can do with maintaining your sanity, maintaining your, balance, and whatever that looks like for you? What's the most you can, and it'll be different. And then don't let, this is what I feel, and it's maybe self-imposed, but the most I can do and the most I want to do is a lot more than what most of my colleagues do. And so it makes me feel awkward because I'm like, dude, I want to do more than what the standard is, So anyways, it made me think of, there's another thing, which perfect segue, unintentionally perfect segue. So we started the semester, and this is going to be probably an unpopular opinion to a lot of people, especially people that have been doing this for a long time. But I think all schools, especially, I was thinking about it this morning. This kind of just started to ruminate this morning in my mind. I think all schools, depending on size, I think could make a factor, but especially if it's a big school. If it's a big state school, if it's as big as RIT size, at least. If it's, maybe Northwest Missouri was a smaller school, especially in the art department, might get away with a little different vibe. I don't know. I still think this plays. But, okay, let me get to it. So, I think it should be reasonable to expect, like at RIT, we allow the students to see their course material a week before classes starts, which to me is like great. As a student, as a person, I want to know what I'm getting into. I know there's probably, if we looked at the data of how many, page opens of the course material it gets open, maybe it's really low. So how many students open, what's the open rate of all these course management softwares and whether or not people are doing it. But regardless, the students have access a week before school, and I think that's great. So I think that should be that should be like the start of the semester. The week before actual classes start is a start. So then I think everything that a professor needs to know should be given to them 2 weeks before the start of the semester. Everything especially if it pertains to the first couple of weeks of classes, or month. If it pertains to the first month, 3 weeks of classes, 3 weeks, I don't know, let's split the difference. 3 weeks of classes. The first 3 weeks of classes, if there is some event, if there's something going on that the first 3 weeks of classes, and then especially, I mean, even longer, but especially the first 3 weeks, it should be known 2 weeks before the start of the semester. So that when we're putting our classes together, when we're prepping things, when we're looking at the calendar, we have to be ready a week before. We have to have everything done a week before. So we have to have time to figure all that out. So we should know everything 2 weeks before school starts. So then that means, to me, we should require faculty, especially because staff tends to work through the summer. Staff works different, right? Staff is usually a 9 to 5 job. 20, then faculty come in, and faculty should have to arrive and be prepared and ready to start taking in information 3 weeks before school starts. I think that if I was the president of a institution, that would be this is the way this school works. Classes start this date. You are here 3 weeks before. And I know there's a lot, to me, this is a way that could structure so that, and it doesn't have to be like you're here available, you're on campus, first meetings, all the meetings are in that 3 week phase. The 2 week phase is prep, things like that. Maybe there's a bunch of, the 2 weeks before and the 1 week before, there's a lot of, what's the term called? Professional development, like a bunch of professional development, lots of, classes, things that people can take and sign up for and just kind of ruminate on and kind of things like that. Lots, especially that 2 weeks before. And then that 1 week before, it's honestly like, and this is the way I like to work in general, but I know the world doesn't work this way. It's like you're done. You're basically done. And it's just like we're just waiting. We're just calm, like little things that needed to get worked on are getting worked on. But it's not like up to the very last. It's like there are still things. And this is, thinking about it, you could put if you're an intelligent person, you can put the pieces together that the schools that I work for wait to the last minute to do too many things. It just fucking kills me, and it's part of my personality. I know that, but it's just like, why do we do this to ourselves? I see it so often. If you know something is going to happen, and it's same with students, same with everything. Something is due on this date. School is starting on this date. So why not reverse engineer and go like, okay, what typically happens? We're always so fucking frantic 3 days before school starts. Let's actually try to finish this all a week before we normally would. And maybe they say, well, we try to do that, but no, you got to have an intentional thing. But part of it is it runs into the contracts and stuff. It's like you're not scheduled. You start school. Like San Diego State was the worst because it was, from what I understood, like the contract year started like the day school started. So like having people come in before was like, everything was happening the day school started, and it was like, oh my god, this is insane. Why are you doing why? But with unions and contracts, like unions are great, but just this is something that I think the higher ed, from the experience that I've had, really should take a hard look at, is the date school starts and the date faculty show up. There should be a lot bigger window of expectation, because that gives, there's just so much that, hopefully the faculty, and again, what I said at the beginning, what's the most I can do? Hopefully the faculty has that mindset of what's the most I can do, which is not the case. A lot of faculty are what's the least I can do and go home and do whatever I want to do. But, And that's, I want to be in an environment that has more people. You're always going to get people that are just that are great, but it's just like the least they can do. It's not like they're doing the least and it's detrimental to the environment. It's just like, they know what the system requires and they do it. Which again, okay, this brings me to another point. It's like, and I didn't write this down, but so and this may, a lot of people will probably be like, Zim, you shouldn't do that. But I don't care if I have to spend a little bit of my own money to accomplish the goal I need to do for my classroom. One of those things is buying candy for my classroom. I brought it up. I went to this neurodivergent workshop a couple days ago, and about how to teach students and people and be aware of, and it's all stuff I already knew because I knew that, but I went just so I could write down on my mid-year review. I went to these workshops. I'm intentionally going to workshops and things like that, so I can write down on my mid-year review. I've gone and I'm trying to, I'm doing what I believe is expected of me. So that's one of the main reasons I went, and it was just convenient and easy. It didn't interfere, and that's why I think there should be way more workshops, and maybe there are, and I'm just not aware of it, but more workshops before school starts, because there tends to be a lot during the school year, and I'm like, I don't want to do that shit during the year. It's like, it's done. I'm trying to just focus on my actual teaching of the students. I want to do this workshop stuff and professional development stuff outside of when I'm teaching, and that's just I'm more, as I get older, the less and less multitasky I'm able to be. And I'm just like, this is all I got. This is all I can focus on. This is all I can do. So, so I went to the neurodivergent workshop, and one of the things that they said in the workshop is like, for, one of the main things that you can provide for neurodivergent people is fidget spinners and things to occupy their physical energy. And one of those things is candy, like having them allow something to have that in their mouth, chewing on or whatever they might be doing, but it's taking up some of that energy, that nervous energy, and it's focusing them a lot. And it's like, oh, I unintentionally like provided something that might have been a massive help to a good portion of my students, because it was just something that I like to do, because I have a different philosophy on it. It's like providing candy in the classroom. It's like food changes the environment. If there's food in an environment and people are allowed to partake in it, it changes the environment. And that was my intention in a lot of ways. It's like, it's fun, and that's part of changing the environment, to make the environment a little more fun, to actually put an active intentional effort in making this environment not the same as every other environment that they are sitting at a desk, listening to somebody talk, hunched over, working. It's like, I'm trying to okay, let's bring candy and change the environment, and unintentionally, in a way, providing for the neurodivergence in my classroom, which is awesome. So so I mentioned, like I said, yeah, in another conversation, I was like, yeah, I'd bring candy all the time anyway. That's just like in my classroom. And then somebody made this comment. It was like, oh, well, I wish I had a candy budget. It's like, I know there's that there. It's important to hold not to be taken advantage of, right? And in this world that we're in right now, with educators our educators especially are in the bottom of the education bucket. If there's a hierarchy to the education ecosphere, especially in the university level, the art educators are on the very bottom, and I'm a visiting faculty close to the adjunct. Like, I'm on the bottom of the bottom. It's like, I'm not tenured, I'm not anything, I'm just there. And so I don't make the most by any means, as you know, listening to this podcast for the last couple of years. So it doesn't leave a lot of room to buy things extra for, classes and things like that. And at the same time, so you got to advocate for yourself. But, and at the same time, it's like, dude, it's just, maybe, what, is it really? Does it really? I mean, if there are ways to buy a bag of candy that'll last you almost the whole semester. I mean, I kind of like to mix it up and kind of go hard on it a little bit. So it does. I mean, it's not cheap. It's not like nothing, but it's not like gonna break the bank. And so like the idea that, oh, I wish that kind of, I was just like, oh my God, it made me internally roll my eye like, I appreciate you. I appreciate your sentiment. I appreciate how you advocate for yourself and how you hold your line. But, it's like that again, it goes back to people unintentionally speak their truth, and just how you talk about things. If you're able to read sort of between the lines, and it's like, oh my God, you don't have to be that tight, loosen up, But all right, so that's, I kind of went on a tangent there, but basically the bottom line is, I think schools should start 3 weeks. Like faculty should have to arrive 3 weeks before school, and really like everything that's needed, like committees need to be formed. People need to meet that third week out, so that by the beginning of the second week out, you can disseminate, you can pass out all the essential critical information to all your professors, especially when it relates to dates, by the time 2 weeks happen, so that they can prepare their classes, so that by the time 1 week happens, it's ready to go. And that is not the case, and it really frustrates me. And I try, because I don't know, I do what I can, because I guess it kind of goes back to that 20% rule that I mentioned at the beginning. So you got to prepare as much as you can, so that when your institution decides to just throw things at you that you weren't prepared for, you could be like, oh, at least I got all that other stuff done, and now I can figure out this one thing, how it fits, or two things or three things. But if like you haven't even started your thing in a way, or I don't know, I guess there's a lot of ways. If you haven't even started your thing, they're throwing more things you didn't expect on it, and you have limited time to finish it all. I guess that's the way I could phrase it. It just starts to get potentially even more overwhelming, because like, oh, I didn't even know this was happening, and now I got to think about it, it's like, oh my God. So long story short, that happened to me this year, and I'm just like really frustrated about it, because it's a combination. There's like, as we know, it's just like this is another thing that's actually on my list. How I react to different people, and it's kind of like how I react to different people depends on how they react to me, or how they present themselves to me. Obviously, I mean, that's just kind of like the way life is, right? But in this particular setting, it's like there are certain faculty that seem to have maintained their awareness that not everybody knows everything. And it kind of falls into, there's this element of how the art world gets a little pretentious about things. It's like, oh, you should know this kind of you should know attitude. And it's like, so, and honestly, like as you've heard me talk, I have a very different perspective in a way of like, art making is so intuitive to me that I'm sometimes struggling to like know what term that intuitive thing I do. And then so some other professors will be throwing around like there's this traditional like, and so I've just been like intuitively learning like how to teach a drawing class or whatever, and like what resonated with me, and then also sort of pushing it into like, okay, I don't think this is as important as it may have been 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I'm kind of but the combination of the institution and people talking to me in that same 20, 30 years ago voice, plus I don't really know that to the T anyway. So it's like, I'm like, oh my God. But there are certain people that talk like, oh, you know. And I'm like, no, I don't. But I don't want to say no, I don't in the moment, because I'm like, I don't know it that way. I know it a different way. And then there's other professors or people that kind of break it down a lot more. And they're like, okay, so this is, and I'm like, oh, thank God you're breaking it down in a way that's like, you're not assuming I know anything. And I prefer people that work that way. I prefer people to never assume. And I know there's like a slow, I guess it just all depends, because it's like I obviously know a lot. So there's things that I don't even understand that I'm intuitively picking up on that I know. But there's just like a whole section of things that I don't know that it's like, I'm like, that doesn't really make sense to me. And I don't, the way you described it isn't making it clearer. So I'm just going to shrug my shoulders and smile and go, okay, yeah, oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, sure. And just kind of go home and go, well, what? And then just fall into the, that thing I've told you many times is teach what you know. So I'm like, well, I didn't understand what they were talking about anyway, so I'm just gonna teach what I know and beg for forgiveness after if it's something. But the irony is the teaching what I know and how I approach and how I see artwork and teaching is like probably better than most. Just to be not, I don't know, I don't give a fuck, man. I know I fucking rock, so whatever. I'm not humble about this whole thing. There's one, as I've told you many times, there's one part of my life that I'm not humble and I don't care. It's that I'm a motherfucking badass artist, and I know it, and I know how to do this, and I know how to teach people, I know how to relate to people, I know how to do all that. I know how to fucking do all that stuff. So I'm not even shy about saying, you know, I rock in the classroom and in my art practice, because it's interesting to me, and maybe it's just the way I carry myself, and maybe it's because I am older, so I definitely have I look the part maybe a little bit, just a little bit. You know, there's definitely age on me. The amount of people that I'd assume I would go to for support come to me for support. And I'm like, that's interesting. And they're younger or whatever. They're just like, I'm like, oh, you think I know more than you? So I was like, I just go, all right, this is the way I do it, you know? So yeah, it's interesting. So going back a little bit to, so since I was talking about that, how I react to different people, you know, one of the things I noticed that I didn't do as much, like I'm trying to navigate this kind of concept of, I don't want to present a false idea of what is true, the truth about what I feel and am in the moment, without going too extreme. So I'm just monotone, but I know I get a little bit too happy in spaces with people. I get a little too like overly positive, I think, and I noticed I did it without even recognizing it. So I've been trying to train myself to not get too high when I'm around people, because I don't want to present this false kind of idea. And I did it a little bit, like the very first meeting we had last week. I was a little too like, hey, and I was like, God damn, I want to like tone it down a little bit, and just, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but there's just an element like because there's other people that can walk into a space and just be like, you're like, oh damn, they want to make sure everybody knows that they think there's a problem with the way things are working, you know. It's like, or something. I mean, and they do it in a way that's not necessarily like they're being an asshole, but they're just like not willing to. It kind of goes back to that candy example. It's like they just want to be like, you know, it's like there's something that needs to be fixed, you know, instead of just kind of going. And there's no question I'm a people pleaser, and there's no question I'm this is my tragic flaw, is that kind of concept of like, start where you are, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. My tragic flaw is just going like, well, instead of like advocating sometimes for more, I'm just like, well, this is what we got, so let's just work with what we got, and just, it'll be awesome. And so, although that can be a strength in a lot of ways, when it comes to bureaucracy, that's not a strength, because you got to fight for what you want. You got to be able to advocate for what you want and need and elevate the overall space, and not just be complicit and go like, well, but as you know, just I recognize something about, I think I definitely have a scarcity mindset. I think, you know, I've been buying stuff for my apartment because I can't just walk across the street anymore. And it's like I ordered a ton of water because I don't like tap water, so I've been buying bottled water. I think I should probably do a service, but I haven't tried to do that yet. So I bought a bunch of bottles of water, and I'm like, do I really need this many? right now? You know? And it just kind of like hit me as like, is this like a scarcity mindset because of how I grew up and the lack of finance? Like, and maybe, and that might play into how I interact with my, you know, professional, space of being an art professor is like this. Oh, I don't ask for it in a way, or I feel like I gotta work for it. And I haven't totally, I'm starting to figure that out because like with the course fees that some of the classes have, you have to spend that money to put toward the course. And I'm like, oh, I just show up and we'll figure it out. Whereas, you know, I don't know. It's interesting. So I'm learning how to do that and be a little bit more okay with more resources in a sense, and not worry that, I don't know. It's all mixed together. I don't know. I haven't figured out that whole thought process totally. But basically, I'm trying to figure out how to change my how I present myself in different scenarios, and trying to lower that ceiling just a little bit so I don't come across as too people pleaser. Going back to what I mentioned at the top too, that do what's the most you can do. Something I left out last week that I meant to say was like, I want to sort of go beyond, with my students this year, my what I'm doing, and where I'm going beyond, where I think I'm going beyond is the way I'm running my office hours this year, and is like what I plan to do for office hours. So my classes are Monday through Thursday for the most part. My workshop's on Fridays, but my classes are Monday through Thursday. Just I get there at I plan to get there at 10 a.m. The class starts at 11, and then I basically in class till 5, and then I'll go home. And I didn't want to, like, that was enough for me. I didn't want to put office hours anywhere after that, because I was like, you know what? And then my mindset of this semester and it's just like, want to be dedicated to this space. Like, this is it. This is what I'm invested in, this idea of being and figuring out how I can level up. And so it's like, okay, let's just make Fridays part of that. Instead of going like, okay, I don't normally have to teach Fridays, so it gives me 3 days. Instead of thinking of it as like a 3-day weekend anymore, I'm like, okay, let me just put something on Fridays. So what I'm putting my office hours on Fridays. I'm planning to show up probably around 11 every Friday. Same kind of, I show up a little bit later, allow myself to sleep in a little bit, show up a little bit later. I plan to do everything that needs any kind of grade for the previous week. If there were projects due, if there's sort of participation grades and things like that, I input that every Friday, so my students are kept up on all that stuff. And then my office hours will be from 3 to 5, and I put them at 3 to 5 because later in the semester I have a workshop that goes 2, maybe, I can't remember now, or 3. I think it goes till 3. But we never take the whole time, or we didn't last semester. So it was like started at 11. It's like a 4-hour block of time or something, I think. So I didn't want to interfere with that as the semester went on. So my office hours basically will be from 3 to 5. But the way I'm treating it this year, like, my office hours are whenever a student needs me. So that's another part of it. But my office hours will be 3 to 5. But I'm framing it as an extension of my classes. I'm calling it like open studio with me. So, and this is an opportunity for any student that wants something that I'm not providing in the bulk of the class. Like, an example would be in my Digital 2 class, there may be some students that want more tutorials, more hands-on. Professor teaches them a tutorial, which is totally cool. But it's up to them to come to me and ask for more of that. I'll work up a lesson, I'll do it, and we'll do it during that time. Like, usually they only take a half hour, 40, like a half hour max to kind of get the tutorial started. So I could teach the tutorial and then they can work on it, and I can be popping around with other students and stuff. But I'm willing to, like, basically teach another class during that space. But they have to be proactive and want and ask for it, and we'll work it out. So that's a way I can get out of having to teach the tutorials, because I don't want to do that. I don't want tutorials to be a main part of my class, because as you've heard me say over and over, right now, students should not be going to art school to learn how to do shit anymore. It's like they should be learning why they want to do shit and thinking about that process, which I'll be talking about later in this podcast again, because I got another thought on that whole concept. So so every once a month on that 2-hour block of time, I'm doing what I'm calling an open critique, and any art students can come, and I'm going to provide pizza, and we can talk about their artwork if they want. We can hang out. Maybe I'll bring my Switch. We can play Mario Kart if they want. Like whatever. Like just have this space. Trying to make the space that I'm sure I talked about it before, but it's like this taking from my music career and going, if you want to build a scene, you need a venue that supports it. If a certain genre of music wants to have a scene, there has to be a venue that supports it. So that's always where it builds from, and then maybe other venues will pick up on it. But same idea, and I feel like the faculty is the venue. If you want a thriving arts community, the faculty is the venue, and we have to create it. We have to say, here's the space. Here it is. Potentially, unless you have really highly motivated students, which I haven't seen since I was an undergrad. I have not seen the level of motivation for art school and art that in the students that I'm teaching that I got to be a part of when I was an undergraduate. And maybe the internet has a thing to do with that, because the internet wasn't around really when I was an undergrad. It was around, but it was very slow, and it wasn't what it is right now. It wasn't a meeting place like you can do now. So maybe that's stealing some of the attention. Obviously it is, there's no question about it, for people wanting to do sort of in real life stuff. So that's my plan. 3 times a month, do a pizza party with my students and anybody that wants to be involved. I'll order 2 pizzas. It will be under $100. It'll be about 60. It'll be probably about $80 after all said and done, tips and everything. There's this place called Santori's Pizza. Santori's, I think. Salvador's, I think. That make these sheet pizzas, and it's just like pretty for the amount of pizza you get and the cost. It's like not bad. So I'll just order a couple sheet pizzas, the first come first serve. 2 hours, get there. Even if students don't want to share art or do anything art related, just hang out and eat pizza and talk. Like that's honestly, that's the way I'm gonna frame it with my students. I'm like this, like hopefully we can have some conversations. Hopefully we can have some more discourse about why we're doing this. Share some work, but it's really about discourse. It's about the discourse. It's not like a place to work. It's a place to share work, and talk and that kind of thing. So hopefully we can create that. Maybe it'll change. I'm calling it cross-discipline critique at this point, but maybe it'll change into like pizza with Zim, conversations with Zim. Maybe that'll be a thing that maybe I'll have a topic we can talk about. This is good. I'm like brainstorming with you right here. All right, going down the list. So I put this as a bullet point, but I'll just address it. I kind of addressed this at the beginning. I can only prepare so much. I'm froze thinking of anything beyond the first week. It's kind of relates to what we were talking about before. Like I know for myself, like I'm at the point where it's like I can't really prepare anymore. Even it's like I've prepared as much as I can, but I need to start getting things off the plate before I can put things on the plate again. And right now it's like first week is all I can really think about. So I'm like, once we get that done, then I can go like, okay, next. And that's part of that Fridays is like every Friday I'll sit down and go like, okay, what do I need to do for my class next? It'll give me the entire weekend. Like if there's some technique, like my drawing class is the one I'm most thinking about, because I'm like, I'm going to be in real time reminding myself, okay, we're having a model come in. So all weekend I'll be like, okay, what are things I should do with the model? It's like, how do I teach this? So I'll just allow myself the weekend to sort of prepare for that, whatever might be coming up in some of my classes. And that's enough. I mean, luckily what I found, I actually can get I'm pretty good at this, putting things together and putting like lesson plans together and kind of ideas, and I can do it pretty quick, but at the same time I can't do it all at once. So there's even though I like to be massively prepared, I can think on my feet pretty good with it. That's part of why I enjoy this, is because in the space, in the moment, there's hardly ever something that somebody can throw at me related to this art stuff that I don't have some value to provide to it. You know, it may not be all of it, but it's usually something like, oh yeah, I've worked with that before. I've done that before. This is my experience with it. This is what happened when I did it. This is what I've learned from doing that. So it's like, even though I might never have learned it the way they're learning it or whatever, and it's like, oh, I didn't even, and then it's like hopefully helpful. So there's just so much I have ability to help with. So I'm able to kind of think on my feet really fast. And that's what gives me the confidence to be in this space, is that you can put me in, like, honestly, you could say, I could show up to, like, walk around there's like 20 students right in the other room and we're teaching something, and I was like, oh, what are we teaching? Oh, okay, good, let's do it. And I would have something to teach them even though I didn't know a second ago. Like, I feel that confident about it. I could walk into any space when it comes to this art stuff and provide some level of value to the students at a drop of a hat. But, you know, obviously there's everything I'm talking about, you know, my anxiety, just different things, because it's a different, there's a different set of expectations, right? If you don't know anything about going into it, there's no real rules because you had no prep time. But I could provide value. I could definitely provide value. But if you do have prep time, the way you provide value should be different, right? Anyways, okay. One of the cool things that's happening this semester. So one of the things, okay, this is like a double. One of the things that I don't do well with, and I'm really dreading, the biggest dread of my semester right now, and I'm gonna try to let it go, is faculty, like peer evaluation type of vibe. So last year, we were assigned mentors, and it really didn't manifest in anything last year, and I think this year it probably will. We were assigned, like, the newer faculty are assigned mentors of older faculty. And last year was just a couple conversations, and it was just kind of like my mentor was pretty busy with their life and stuff. So nothing really happened. So it was like, I was like, thank God, you know, because for one, I kind of, and maybe this is just, I mean, I know it's different for different people. And I know I've talked about this before, but it's almost like you should like let the new faculty just figure it out for a year before you even talk about, like, we're going to observe your classroom. Or if you observe their classroom, it should be in a way that maybe, I don't know, just in a way that's not like, okay, we're going to come in on this day and observe your classroom. It's just like, let them figure it. And that's what I need. Like, I'm so thankful nobody observed my classroom in a formal way. Like, I think people, like my faculty, other faculty definitely walk past my class when I'm teaching. And so they saw things. And then I was in environments that I was able to be more, like I told you last year, there was a couple environments where I was like, now I'm in my teaching mode outside of my classroom, but in this other space. And so they're seeing how I'm doing that. But that's like peak level anxiety, is like being observed in the classroom in a way, peak level anxiety, thinking about it. Because usually when it's what I do, my kind of defense mechanism, my workaround is to just bring them in. I'm like, hey, it's whoever's they're here, like, what's up, welcome to the classroom, this is my class, like, if I bring them in and not just be like try to ignore them, then it really helps my anxiety level go down. And then, especially, like, I like it the most if they're there from the beginning of class, because they can see my meditations that I do. They can see, like, how I get into the class. They can see it's not just about the lesson plan, because sometimes lesson plans can kind of go crazy. It's like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out at the same time, And so that's why it's like this drawing class, because it's the first time I'm teaching this, I don't want to be fucking observed the first time I'm teaching it, because it's going to be it's not going to be the accurate assessment of it. And if they observe me during this first time teaching this class, I'm like, God damn it, I don't want you here. Do not want you here. Let me figure it out and then observe me. And then I'll just get the fucking feedback that's like, I already know that. Don't tell me that. I already know that. I already know. It's like, anyway, what's that avoidance? What is that thing? I've seen a lot of it on TikTok. When you're told something, it makes you want to do it less than when you would have done it on your own anyway. It's like, it's sort of like that kind of idea. It's like, God damn it. I know. You don't have to tell me. I know you're doing your job. I know you think you're being supportive. I know all this stuff, but fuck, I know. I'm a little zany today. This is good. I think I'm excited about the school year, which is good. Which is a good thing. Everybody, take the wins when you can get them. Right. If I'm feeling good, hey man, this moment right now, thank the universe that I'm feeling all right, because it's not always the way, So, but the irony, in a way, of that whole thing I just described is this year it turns out I have a GA, graduate assistant, in my drawing 2 class. So it's actually helping me lower the anxiety, knowing that it's like multifaceted, and I don't have no idea. So so again, going back to the plan your shit a little bit sooner. I just last night at like the end of the workday, it was like 4 p.m. or something, or 5 p.m. or somewhere around that time, I got this email. I was in this group email of like, hey, talking to the GA, here's your assignment. And I'm like, I didn't know about it either. So I emailed somebody in the email chain separately. So I was like, this is the first I've heard. So this means I have a graduate. Is there anything you could tell me more about this situation? And they were like, and unfortunately, they were like, oh, I thought you could tell in the voice of their email that they were like kind of put off because I didn't know yet, and they assumed that other people would tell them. But it's not a big deal. But I just wanted to know. So turns out I have a graduate assistant. It's only 1 day a week. Unfortunately, I would have liked it to be both days because I really want, I want to teach that graduate student the way that I think about this whole space, and they're going to miss half of it. And I'm like, God darn it. It's like, because there's no question at this point that what I really want to teach our graduate students. Like, I like teaching undergrads. I'm good at teaching undergrads. I'm good at it, but I'd prefer to teach graduates because that's the conversation I really want to have. So this is giving me the opportunity to at least have a little bit of a moment to hopefully be support and help this particular graduate student and learn more about the ecosystem of graduate school. It is a graduate from medical illustration, so it may be a little bit different, but it's still, it's still kind of in the realm of graduate stuff. But I'm really excited about it because what it helps sort of it's like, okay, there's somebody I feel comfortable being like, hey, this is my second. I can be a little more vulnerable. I feel like it's really hard to be vulnerable with a faculty member this is something interesting I might bring this up to my superiors, my boss in a sense. But vulnerable, I'll just remember it through the podcast. I find it's easier to be vulnerable to somebody else that's a little bit closer to your space than some faculty member that's been there for 20 years. Like, for me, it's really hard to feel like you can be like, I don't really understand with somebody, and they're like, well, you should. It feels like and whether or not they would do that, and it's just maybe something that it's definitely something I have to get over, but it's not completely that I have to get over it, because it's not without merit. It's not without experiencing it in the moment, experiencing it. The reasons why it's hard to be vulnerable is because you hear the way they talk, you hear the way they do things, you've experienced them in moments, and you're like, oh, I don't want to bring that up to this particular group of people. But if you're with somebody that's kind of a little bit closer to your level of experience and everything, it's easier to be vulnerable and figure that out. Because it brings me back to the mentor idea. This is real-time brainstorming here. It brings me back to the mentor idea. It's like, maybe it shouldn't be so much a one-on-one. Maybe there's a way it's like it's group on group versus one-on-one. So it's like you have a little bit of support with other people in your same space, couple, new faculty and experienced faculty. So but when it's one-on-one, it's hard. Maybe there's other faculty that just are afraid to talk about certain things because this experienced faculty are coming at it from a viewpoint that they've forgotten what it's like to be where you're at. And I think there's something there. There's something there. I'll just leave it at that. I think there's something there. Interesting. Cool. I like this. Thanks for that. All right. So I have a GA. So I'll get to talk to them about, like brainstorm with them on my drawing class. I'll be like, hey, so this is the first time I'm teaching this. This is what I'm doing. But, it's like, maybe it's more just like being able to tell them what I'm doing without fear of judgment. I'll just be like, hey, because it'll be like, because this, I don't know, kind of thing like that. So I'm excited about it. And then the other part of that piece is I've reached out. Last year I got to know and seem to got to in a good space with the person that's taking over like the grad advising. I don't think they called it advising, but like program director. They're taking over the grad program director role of a section of the art school. And I reached out to them. I was like, they told me the beginning of the summer that they were thinking about it. And I was like, I sent him an email right away. I was like, hey, if you end up taking this, I want to be involved. Like, how can I be involved in this, with the grads? And then he came back to me at the beginning of the school year and said, oh, I got your email. Sorry I didn't respond. But, a lot of faculty just kind of just turn off the other stuff. They just focus on their other stuff during the summer. But after that conversation, I just kind of followed up and said, just want to bring this back to the top of your inbox. But now that I know he's the grad advisor or grad program director, I'm like, all right, I'll be your assistant. Like, let me know whatever you need. Like, let me just be in this space, let me do that. And so, which is kind of I'm surprised I didn't write this down, but I don't know, what I've thankfully learned from going to graduate school, this is like something that instilled in me in grad. It's like, don't wait. Do not wait, especially, and I'm trying to instill this in undergrads. Don't wait for a professor to give you an assignment. Don't wait for it to be told the thing. Be flexible, but just go and do the thing you want to do. And what I want to do is work with graduate students. So I'm like pretty darn aggressive about trying to get into that space in this space. It was really hard last year. Everybody just didn't respond to anything. So I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do there? But luckily, since I now like know somebody and they saw me, they've actually given me compliments on how my critique style and method. They're like, hey, I really like the way you critique, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, great, that's what I want to do. I want to do more of that. And so there's a relationship building. So now that I'm, sharing my desire to be more involved in the grads, he might take it more serious and help that happen. So that might have been, he might have said, well, have Zim, give a grad to Zim because he really wants to be involved with grads. So that might be why I have a GA. I don't know. I'm just pure speculation. So, which is cool. So the bottom line is I hope to learn from the grad. I hope I can provide some support for the grad, in beyond just that. I don't want them to, I want to feel like like I've offered them something. All right, man, this is a long one. We're going after it today. Okay, we're getting into this more general concepts of art school. I'll start with this one, portfolios. So I know not every school, so RIT has a portfolio review. And I realized this morning, thinking about the whole concept of a portfolio. Like you've heard me say over and over, I want to be a part of an art school that's more holistic. It acknowledges a little more transparently that the art world is more than just artifacts. And RIT is very heavy into artifacts. It's like the language they use, the things that they do intentionally or unintentionally, whether they recognize it fully or not, is showing that they prioritize the artifact. There isn't a lot. I don't see a lot that prioritizes performance-based artwork. Provides definitely doesn't. I mean, definitely doesn't talk or even know about social practice kind of elements of artwork. Just like, and prioritizes like the the traditional viewpoint on the artifact. It definitely feels like they look at, can you draw a straight line, can you shade a sphere, concepts as higher, as meaning a little bit more than I ever want it to mean. So that's just the way it's presenting itself is that. So when you are presenting, when you say you need a portfolio to enter this school, and I suppose, depending on how you define what the portfolio should look like, that right there is like, okay, this is setting a foundation maybe, or setting a message. This is sending a message about what this art school is about. And just double down on the idea that this art school prioritizes those traditional ideas. It's not a contemporary art school by any means. It's a very traditional and formal and commercial space for art making. So it's like, what does a portfolio offer? And this is where my brain actually, I can feel a physical, like, there's like a smashing of concepts in terms of like the drawing and some of these formal and traditional things that when you say art, it's like it's so ingrained in the idea that it, like, there's a I could feel a physical orb with this kind of more contemporary social practice performance. Like they kind of hit each other a little bit, and they who's gonna give, what's gonna happen, who's gonna absorb, like, and so it's like, and I realized that there is definitely like a conversation, there's definitely a conflict in a way of like, how do you then define, like, what is it that the art school how do you justify, how do you rectify, how do you reconcile that whole concept, because it is so vast. We talked about last week, it's like art is so vast, so you have to condense some of it, because otherwise you're just like, so you have to decide what's important. I guess, just to reiterate again, I just feel like right now we're just putting too much importance on some of these traditional concepts. We haven't elevated other things to the same level of importance of these traditional concepts. And basically, like, I'm visualizing it like drawing, 2D, 3D, right? We know those are foundational elements. How to draw, how to conceptualize in 2 dimensions, how to conceptualize in 3 dimensions. I just really think we need to add a computer literacy sort of part of it, just this computer element. And that could start to have the like, we could have a very intentional conversation around AI, around what's happening, but computer, like tech, like digital space, the digital space of art has its own space, because these first 3, you should, I really feel like, as a foundational level, you shouldn't even be messing with a computer. Should be all body, should be all, found drawing, 2D, however that might look, other drawing. But I try to take my 2D class outside of holding a pencil, like cutting things, like whatever, collaging, like using the collage as a foundation of your 2-dimensional kind of arts practice. And then 3D is, 3D, like bringing it into the 3rd dimension, but still clay, sculpting, hammering, chiseling, sawing, gluing, like 3 dimensions, So then digital space. What does that mean? A foundation course. And it could be like that could be where you plant the seeds, especially right now in this is a great podcast today. This is foundation level art school. We have to have a conversation about AI and machine learning in this space. That's where we can start talking conceptually about these topics, but also playing with them. Have a very this is how Adobe Creative Cloud works, but also talking about what the digital space in the art world means. And there could be assignments around that, researching the cutting edge of thought with that, and planting that seed. And then the fifth one is performance and social practice. Like, art schools should be sharing with their students that all these other things may never even factor in to the art practice you want to have. Your art practice may be about community building, people, performance. I mean, obviously, there's the terminology, the language can be translated for across all of them, but you don't need to draw a straight line. You don't need to shade a sphere. That's not important when you're talking about social practice. It's a totally different beast that we are failing art students in 2025 and beyond by not letting them know that there's this whole other sphere. And this is, my opinion, the most important, especially right now with what's going on in society, with the amount of oppression, the late stage capitalism, all this right here, these first four feed into capitalism in a way that hopefully we don't need to. But this third one, this last fifth one, is the anti-capitalist viewpoint more so than any of the other ones, because it's, if you do any research on performance art and social practice, 99.9% of the time it's about about going against that idea. It's about it's a non-capitalist viewpoint on art, on society. And so, yeah. So that's the foundation. That's what 2025 foundation should be. But most of them only have the first three. Drawing, 2D, 3D. I don't know. And then somewhere along the lines, depending on what program you're in, you may or may not take a digital competency class. And then definitely maybe there's 1-2 schools out there that prioritize social practice and performance at that foundation level. I just think, yeah. That was good. I'm glad I got this recorded. So that was something to do with the portfolio process, but I'm just going to move on now. So with that concept I just laid out for you, it's like, so what do you do? What do you do as an art school? How do you figure this out? And I know this would never happen, but what I think needs to happen is art schools need to go hard concept. It's like I told you last time, there's this difference between, should art schools be more like trade schools or philosophy schools? And maybe there's some other kind of idea that I'm free. And I'm like, art schools should be way more about philosophy than trade. Now, especially in 2025, we should be emphasizing the philosophy way more than ever, because we don't need the trade as much. We got YouTube to teach the trade. We got other resources. You use that as a tool. Hopefully your professors are good in the trade. Hopefully your professors are also good in the trade, so that when the students bring what they've been practicing into the space, the professors can go like refined and help refine it versus starting from the bottom level. So, and I know it's hard to, it's like you have to, what came to mind is, the students that really want the trade, I just think I don't know. I just think it'd be boring, and it would be boring, and it would be just such a waste to make an art school still in 2025 be about, we'll teach you these techniques. It's like, I feel like that's like not gonna help. That's gonna make you lose funding even faster. But if you're like, we'll teach you how to but here we go. We'll teach you how to think. And then, but of course, society wants less people thinking. So our government wants less people thinking. So it's like we're in a tough spot right now. But because if art school is doing it the right way, then we'd have a lot more people protesting, basically, because you doing art school the right way would make everybody more empathetic, would make more people understand that the way the society is built right now is fucked. But so back to what I was saying. So how do you then create an art school that is 2025 to 5 and beyond appropriate. And I think if you could do it, all art schools should just slam hard concept. It's like they should plan on not even having anything, they go all the way to concept. Go like, we're just going to talk about art. We're just going to talk about making art. Obviously you can't do that. You'll bore, nobody would sign up for that school. They want to actually make stuff. But you start 100% concept, and then you work backwards from there. Okay, how far back do we need to go to make sure students actually want to be there? Like, how far back? But it's not like starting from, which I think most art schools right now are starting from techniques. They start on the technique side. They're just they're so deep into the technique side that there are some art schools that jump farther into concept, but it's like, but in 2025, I think it should be like starting from concept and working back into technique. What is it you want to say? Oh, okay. That's what you want to say? Let's see how we can use drawing to help you say that. Not, can you shade a sphere? Can you do a value scale? Can you make a value scale perfectly? Is your value scale perfect? Who gives a fuck? It's like I was mentioning it, was it last week? It's like maybe the concept. I mean, this is the argument, and I know I'm in the minority. I know for a fact I'm in the minority, but this is the struggle of the art academia, I believe. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, where do you place the value? More concept, more form and technique and all that stuff. Fundamental, or whatever, technique, fundamentals. I don't know the terms I'm looking for, but where do you place the value and how do you teach it and what's important? I think it's harder to teach concept, right? Because you need faculty that also are elevated. Because there's more people that can teach how to shade a sphere and do a value scale well that can't think about anything. So it's like, yeah, that's easier for everybody just to teach fundamental technique-y stuff. But to teach how to think, that's hard. That requires much more due diligence on everybody's part. Unfortunately. In a way. Obviously there's probably plenty of people out there that can do it. So it's not like there's not people out there, but it is definitely easier to let's just teach them how to shade a sphere. And then if they shade a nice sphere, then they can go on to the next level. It's like, but by the time, because it's like the concepts may not require you to ever need to shade a sphere like that. But I get, it's like, it's good to know the rules, to break the rules. I mean, there's just so much. There's so much in that kind of whole space. It's like, and I obviously haven't figured out all the answers, but I just don't like the way, I just think the fact that most of my students, if I tell them if I bring up the idea of social practice, they're like, what the fuck is that? The fact that so many people don't even know what that means or have heard it makes me go like, okay, we're failing these students. We are failing these students. Especially, I'm at the point where if you're teaching students how to try to make money, you're failing students. Right now, our society does not need more people to go and learn how to make money. They need to learn how to make the world a better place. And artists are the tip of the spear of revolution. We are the ones that are the ones that get the world thinking and changing. We are the most important people on the planet. The artists are the most important people. And if we're wasting their opportunity to be that by saying, let's figure out how they can work and get money out of this thing they're doing. And I get it, we're stuck in this capitalist society, so it feels like we're failing them if we don't teach them how to make money. But the honesty is we're failing them if that's what we're focused on. We're failing them if we're not teaching them how to use their gift to do more than just make money. That was sort of my last bullet point there. How would you express? It's kind of like thinking about the class. One of the things I want to put in my lesson plan now, or like when I start my classes off, how would you express artistically if you were not thinking of getting a job? That's the student I want to teach. I want to teach the student. How would you enjoy illustration, you enjoy drawing, you enjoy whatever it is you're doing. How would you express if you're not thinking about trying to use it to get a job? That's the expression I want to see. Because the irony of it, in a way, is if you do that, you'll get the job because you'll have a unique perspective and voice. You're not trying to think about, like, what do people want to see? People want to see something they haven't seen. People don't know what they want to see. So it's like, oh, they're doing something different. Let's use them in our ad campaign. Let's use them in our something or whatever. It's like they're not doing the same thing everybody else is doing, and then you're competing with this pool of people that are already doing the same thing you're doing. You're like doing something unique and different and have a voice, and it's like, oh, that's different. Let's bring that in. Pay for that. All right. You know what? This podcast is going to be like over an hour at this point. So I'm going to save some of my last stuff. Let's see if there's anything else I really need to talk about. The last thing I just definitely want to bring up. So this is my last. I'll close it off with this. It's just more of a personal kind of journey. I don't know what I should do. I don't know what I should do with my career at this point. Like, I know I don't want to stay at RIT. That's clear. I don't want to be there long term. I don't want to be in Rochester. I've already pretty much made up my mind to not be, but I definitely haven't let go. Like when I was moving from Northwest Missouri, it was a lot easier for me to be like, fuck it, I don't give a fuck. Whatever happens, happens. I don't care. I'm not coming back here. It's just like, if I don't end up getting a job, I don't end up getting a job, and I'll just figure it out. I'll call my dad or call my sister and be like, can I move? I guess I'm answering my plan. Because that's really what it is. It's like that safety net. It's like, what do I do? What do I do if I don't get a job? Or if I can't afford something? It's like, how can I afford to actually live somewhere for a moment? But I don't want to be I don't want to be back at RIT. So I've told you last time, Detroit, Michigan is where I feel like I want to go. I'm planning on, so I'm getting my driver's license, or I have my driver's license, but I'm getting an enhanced ID, so I'll be able to fly soon. So I'm hoping that maybe that doesn't take too long. It's a process. I'm working on it because I need my social security card, which I don't have. So I have to go down to the social security office to get my social security card, and next Friday is the appointment for that. So I don't know how long that'll take, if I can get it in the moment, or if blah, 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 blah. So anyways, that's in process to get my ID so I can fly. I think we're in the phase, right? We can't fly right now without a passport or whatever, enhanced ID. So, or whatever. But I want to go to Detroit for like a weekend this year, like hopefully before the winter hits, and just walk around the city, and be like, yeah, yes, feel it, for a moment. Maybe I can go to a football game or something. That would be sick. Ooh, that would be really cool. See what the Detroit Lions schedule is and see if I can go to a game. But those are on Sundays, and whatever. There's one in October. There's a 4-day weekend that this would be the perfect thing to do over that weekend. But I want to start emailing schools in Detroit, which I've emailed before, but I want to just start doing more like cold calling, in a sense, spaces in Detroit. Maybe when I go do my visit, I can actually go meet some people. But that's where I think I want to go if nothing else happens. But it would be great, obviously it'd be awesome if I could line something up before. If like, oh, I'll be teaching here. One of my friends keeps telling me about, you should teach community college because, you can get paid more and blah, 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 and other things. And I'm open to teaching community college. But the only thing that, not the only thing, but yeah, really, I think, as I think about it, really the only thing that prevents me from really going hard on community college and that kind of space is graduates. Like, I want to, as you heard me say at the beginning of this podcast, I want to teach. I want to be in a space where I can teach graduates. So that kind of cuts off that option in a way. Maybe there's another way I can do it, but that I'm not familiar with at this point. But if I'm in a university that has a graduate school, then I can teach graduates. So, anyways, I would love to get into like, what's the one? Michigan State, the Wolverines, whatever. That's like right there by Detroit. I think it's Ann Arbor's like right below, right? I think that's where it is, right? It's like right there, pretty much. So that's Stamps School, I think, is their art school there. But or something else in the area. I don't know what else. I mean, there's got to be other schools that might want this guy. Wow. The part of it too is like, I want to be able to provide my kids are getting to an age that I could really provide support for them by having a space they could come. They want to get out of their mom's space. That's clear. Both of them are ready to leave their mom's space. Don't I've talked to my daughter, talked to my son. They both are ready to, and I want to, if I could, like, hey, come, there's a space for you here, hands off, you just do your thing, space. I would love that. That would be so, it would be quiet. There wouldn't be it would just be a calm, quiet space. I'd be able to reconnect with them. They could do their own thing, go to school, work, whatever they wanted to do. But I can't do that really without some degree of foundation under me, of a space that I'm staying, and hopefully a space large enough to support them, and hopefully a space that I can afford. But that's what I hope. I don't want to get I've gotten to the point in my life that it's like dreaming is a different thing than it used to be. When I was up to like maybe 30 years old, I used to fantasize, oh yeah, it's gonna be cool when this happens. At this point, I'm like, that would be cool, but I don't think about it too much because it's like I've had too much, there hasn't been enough indication that, and the way that I navigate my life, indication that anything beyond what is already happening will happen. It feels like maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe I'll get, it just doesn't feel, it's like there's, as we know, the world economy, what we need to do to survive is getting harder and harder to achieve. And it's like, even if I am, so how should we do this? The world is getting harder and harder to achieve. So up here, even if I am going up, everything else is going up too. So it's not like I'm going to intersect and get above it unless something crazy happens. But it's just kind of like I'm even though I'm older, I'm smack dab in the middle of what's happening with Gen Z and other millennials. It's like there's just no clear evidence that we'll be able to thrive in any way at this point. And we see it, if you're at all paying attention to what's happening in the world and our society, the 1% is just putting their boots on our faces harder and harder and harder. They have no desire to actually help people. It's just sad. Zero empathy, zero compassion, zero, like, oh, one person might take advantage of the system. That means everybody doesn't get an opportunity because that one person. It's like, who cares? Let that one person take advantage of the system. Who cares? Who cares? It's the price of doing business, and who cares? Let's work with them. Let's talk to them. Let's be empathetic. Let's find out why they want to take advantage of the system. Let's not persecute everybody for one person. And the irony of that is the 1% takes advantage of the system, but they can do it because they have the money and power and no consequences. But the poor person that takes advantage of the system, they get thrown in jail or they get ostracized. But the rich people that take advantage of the system, oh, they deserve to be able to because they are rich, whatever. Anyways, this is long enough. I think this will, after I edit it down, it'll probably be about an hour and 20, hour and 15. Thanks for joining, my friends. We'll catch up with you again next week. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, be loving, kind, and patient. Peace. Bye.